Welcome to the Couch Cook. I am super excited about this one today. Guys, we are making venison shakshuka. Traditionally, shakshuka is made with a primary ingredient being poached eggs. Today, we're gonna use something completely different. We're using venison, specifically moose that we recently harvested on our last hunting trip, but you can use any variety of venison for this recipe. Let's jump right into it. We're gonna start off here by slicing an onion, just nicely thinly sliced, or you could dice it, whatever you prefer. The world is your oyster. You do whatever you like, but I'm slicing. We'll crush a couple cloves of garlic. Now, if you have a large clove of garlic, you might only need one, but I'm a firm believer that there's not such a thing as too much garlic, so whatever you're happy with. And that's the beautiful thing about shakshuka, friends. You can do whatever you like. It's really hard to mess up. So we're just gonna finely mince this garlic. It doesn't need to be a paste, but just finely chopped. Never had garlic really make me cry. Usually that's the onions. It's getting to me. It's already so beautiful. There we go, that's about all we need. Throw that on with our onions. And then we will also chop up 2 bell peppers. You could use red, you could use yellow, you could use orange, and you could use green, whatever you're happiest with. But I like red the most. I find them to be the best of the colors. And then we will do a nice thin slice similar to the onions. If you are dicing your onions, probably dice your peppers. That way you're not having a massive bite of pepper and no onion. You kind of get more uniform flavors. And again, this doesn't matter, but that's just what I do. What I do generally turns out pretty good though, so might want to take the advice. This is how I peel a pepper. So we chop the top and the bottom off, create a little slice. There, open it up like a little book, and then right on the rib where the white core attaches, I just roll it out. That's it. De-seeded a pepper, lickety-split, just like that. Cut it into thirds, slice. If your knife isn't that sharp, you might want to flip it the other way around onto the skin side down, flesh side up, and slice down. Now that we have our peppers and garlic and onion prepped, we're ready to get cooking. So let's start out by heating up a skillet. You want a big skillet like this. We'll heat it up on medium heat with a couple tablespoons of olive oil. Shakshuka, lots of olive oil. That's fine. So we'll let that heat up a little bit. We have a couple spices that we're gonna be cooking with. Here I have 2 teaspoons of ground cumin and 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika. As well, if you like the spice, you got a little bit of chili flakes. We're just gonna season up with a little bit of chili flakes, but there's no set amount. If you like a lot of heat, add a lot of chili flakes. If you don't like a lot of heat, then you're good. As well, you'll need some salt, some pepper, and then here we have a 28-ounce can of whole tomatoes. So that right now they're whole, but we're gonna crush them by hand before we add it into the peppers and the onions. So we don't want this pan too hot. So as soon as you start to see it smoke and slightly shimmer, you're definitely good to go ahead and add your vegetables. So just add them all in at once. Stir them around. If you feel like your temperature is too high, go ahead and turn it down a little bit. You do not want to fry your peppers and onions. We want to stew them. We want to slowly cook them down. So at this phase, I like to season them. The salt will help extract some moisture and help them break down. And go ahead and use some pepper as well. You want to make sure you're constantly stirring just to prevent them from sticking and burning to the bottom. It'll help the heat disperse. So while those onions and those peppers are stewing and while we're watching them, we're gonna crush these tomatoes with our hands. So get right in there. Get right in there. I tell you, you could use a fork or something to do this, but no, this is a beautiful part. Getting in there and crushing them with your hands. And I like to crush these tomatoes, not till they're super smooth like a puree, but rather like a little bit chunky here and there. It gives a good texture to your sauce, and it helps really stew nicely. So I'm kind of looking for a consistency like this. Kind of pulpy, kind of stewy. You don't want it too smooth. Like I said, you do want those nice and rustic bits of tomato. What's that? It's fine. It's perfect. I like this shot. This is me in my true form. Okay, so as you can see, the volume of our vegetables have reduced dramatically. They've wilted down here, they've cooked down, they've come to this really nice point, super aromatic in here. We're gonna add our spices. So our cumin and our paprika, we wanna add those in before we add the tomatoes so they have some time to toast and get aromatic. As well as I'm gonna use my pinch of red chili flakes right now. Stir it around nice and good. It'll only take about 30 seconds before it starts getting really aromatic in here. Now that your spices have been toasted, you go ahead and add in your tomato. Add it all in. Stir it up. That's what I'm talking about. All right, so not necessary, but for me, I want a little bit more volume in here. So I'm gonna add about a 1/4 cup of water. You can use stock, just to thin it out a little bit. You'll want to give it another dash of salt and pepper. And then we'll bring this up to a simmer and let it stew on a low heat for about 30 minutes. All right, so while those tomatoes and peppers and onions are stewing away, we're gonna jump right into the meatball part. This is where it's different than traditional shakshuka. At this point, what people would do is crack an egg, create a little well, and put it in there and poach the egg in the tomato sauce. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna make these meatballs. Now, I got 2 pounds of ground moose. You can use any type of venison, white-tailed deer, mule deer, elk, caribou. Just use ground venison of any type. Wherever there's deer, you can do this, okay? So 2 pounds of ground venison. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is more than what the pan's gonna be able to hold, so you'll just have some extra meatballs that you can freeze up and cook another day, or make shakshuka again tomorrow, like I will, most likely. For 2 pounds of venison, we're using 1 cup of breadcrumbs. Doesn't really matter on the type that you use. We're gonna crack 2 whole eggs, shell excluded. We got a teaspoon of smoked paprika, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. I use about a teaspoon of salt per pound of ground meat. That's a general guideline, but that usually sends you in the right direction. And before we get mixing, I add in some chopped chives. Snip off the ends. Before we get mixing this, we'll do a nice crack of black pepper. Same theory as the crushing the tomatoes. I use my hands. I like the feel. The feel gives me the sense of when it's combined enough. Alrighty. The proper mixing technique here is squishing to start. Squishing up that egg and the breadcrumbs to get it combined as good as possible. You want nice, thorough mix here. This smells ridiculous already. It's gonna be so good. So good. So when it comes to ground meat and doing meatballs and burger patties and whatnot, you need to make a little small mini patty and fry it up to taste it. Or if you're really courageous like myself, you'll just give it a taste like this. Raw. We're good. We are good here. Okay, so time to roll these out. I have an ice cream scoop. Just, you know, there's no law here. There's no law. You're not going to jail for not having it a certain size. But generally, you want to have it the same size so that it cooks evenly. This just gives me a good point of reference. You want it about the size of a golf ball. There you go. Get a golf ball and compare them to the size of a golf ball. All right, we're in the final phases here of our shakshuka, and our tomatoes have stewed down nicely. As you can see, it's very thick now and cooked in beautifully with the peppers and the onions. It smells amazing, but it's just a little bit too thick, so I'll thin it out a little bit more with some water, or you can use some chicken stock, whatever you have. And we'll just mix it up here just to thin it out just a little, because we're not done cooking just yet. We want to bring this temperature up back to a simmer here, and then we're going to place these meatballs nestled in this beautiful little sauce. Go ahead, and then just every couple inches, inch or so, go ahead and just place a meatball in there, just like this. Fit as many as you can, and any leftovers, save for another day. Give them a home, little home in here. Okay, so now you see here, all our meatballs are nestled in. We got a nice little simmer going. So all we're gonna do is cover. So I have to use a plate because this one doesn't have a lid, but you want to put a lid over the top. This steam will help circulate heat and cook the top of the meatball. So we're gonna do this for about 10 minutes and then take the lid off, turn the meatballs around in the sauce, and do that again for another 5 minutes, or until the internal temperature is about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. But we're just gonna give this a little nap for a few minutes and come back to it. All right, so while the meatballs are having a nap, we are gonna just get some garnishes together for the very final product here. Here I have some cilantro, stems and all, fresh cilantro. And just give it a rough chop. It doesn't need to be a fine paste or anything like that. Just a nice rough chop that we're gonna douse on the top at the very end. There we go. And then the other ingredient that we're gonna use for the final hoorah is some feta cheese. You can use goat cheese. I love feta cheese is classic, so go ahead, you can use that. And then just crumble it into large chunks here. Don't make it too fine. I've also done this with ricotta cheese before. Feta cheese is the most traditional and true way of doing this. All right, here we are, we're almost done. So we'll just roll these around for the last few minutes of cooking time, just to get them nicely coated as well. Oh, they're perfect. They're turning out so good. Ooh, delightful. Rotate them around. Oh, buddy. We're doing so good here. It's not even funny. All right, so now that we're about a minute or two from being completed, I'm gonna add some feta cheese so it could cook down into the sauce here. Just be really random and sporadic with it. Add bits everywhere. We want this to be nice and feta cheesy. There we go. And then here I'll just cover it for the last minute or so. Help break it down a little bit. That's what it's all about, man. We just build aromas, we build flavor, build character in your food. Check this out. The feta cheese is nicely sweat. Like it's sweating, it's breaking down, it's incorporating into the sauce here. This is where we take the cilantro. And you're probably thinking, ooh, I don't like cilantro. Maybe you're that person. Well, I'm telling you, you gotta try it with cilantro. It does complete this dish. Please do not skip out on the cilantro. You know what else we're gonna do? I like chili flakes. I like spice. So we're just gonna hit it with some more chili flakes. Woo! A little bit more in there. Guys, that's really all there is to it. Now you're probably wondering, oh, am I just supposed to eat it like that? Well, yeah. You absolutely can just eat it like that. But it's best enjoyed with lavash, pita, that I got a video for that you should check out. Actually, you know what? That's what you should do. You should eat this with lavash or some sort of pita. And I got the video for that, so make sure you hit that video, watch that, make that pita, and enjoy it with this. That's really all there is to it. Venison shakshuka, you're welcome. Are you ready? Because I am. Dude, bro, we're changing the world, I think. Oh, Duncan. Dang.